Let us begin our webinar today. Welcome to everyone that is joining us today. I'd like to start off by thanking the sponsor of this panel, TransUnion, a leader in data provisioning services and all around great partner to deal with, as I think we're going to find out on this phone call today. Our panelists today include Mr. Joey Wilkins. Joey Wilkins is currently the Chief Compliance Officer and General Counsel for UServe. UServe is a high-volume, high-tech process serving company specializing in the collection space. Joey, welcome to the webinar today. And our second panelist, of course, industry legend, Miss Stephanie Clark, CEO of VeriFacts. And for those that don't know, VeriFacts is a leader in the employment verification services across the financial services industry. And for those that don't know Stephanie, you're going to get to know her a little bit today. And with that being said, we're going to get right into our webinar entitled Relationship-Based, but backed by data and skip tracing in 2024. How have things changed? How has your experience changed? And as business leaders in this space, the first thing I want to ask you is, I'm going to roll the clock back. I'm not going to use any number of years, but I know it's more than a decade each. When you first got into this space, tell me about what skip tracing meant to you. You know, what were the tools you were using, and what was it that you really tried to leverage at that time? I'm going to start with you, Joey.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, great. I think for us, it has been the technology and the automation associated with the skip tracing. 10 years ago, there was databases that were all over the place that you were looking at a tax assessor's website, or you were looking at different skip tracing services that you were having to do manually. Now, all of that data is pulled together. You can go to one or two sources and really get the benefit of all those different separate databases kind of rolled up into one. So I think the biggest difference for us is automation and some of the tools that are available now to kind of get this information from one source that is coming from multiple sources.
Yeah, fair statement, Joey. So let me ask you this in a different way, and I'm gonna kick it over to Stephanie. It's your first day at VeriFacts, and I realize there's some time there. What was the industry standard from a skip tracing perspective? And again, I remember my first day on a collection floor, and there were two things that we utilized. One was a crisscross directory, which is this like heinous phone book size thing where you'd like flip through to try to like correspond. The other one was this giant binder of Merlin information system CDs that had a county for each CD, and you had to take, like get space on a computer that had the CD drive. I mean, this is 2000. So, and then you put that in and try to find it was almost like a massive phone book. And so what were the tools you were using, Stephanie? I'm curious.
That is so funny. You said what I was going to say. It was CDs. That's the thing that I remember the most was CDs. And I remember we would print all the accounts and color code them based on what we were trying to find on the consumer. And lot of data coming in, and not necessarily quality data. It was just bulk. We would buy it in bulk. And it seemed like we could also invest a lot more labor then. Like we had more to work with on the labor side. And now that's a concern. We need to make sure we're working smart in controlling that labor cost. But back in the day, it seemed like we could really invest a lot of time. Everything was printed. And those CDs, that's what we all passed those CDs around. Like you needed this certain one for this account or whatever. So definitely times have changed from CD land.
We know it's changed from a technology perspective, but let me also ask you from this perspective, because I'm under the impression that you both have some experience, not just third-party collections, but also first-party collections. And what I mean by that is working direct for lenders or working for those in finance companies or in positions where they need this same information. What types of changes and what types of things have you seen, especially over the last few years, in the differences between the pre and post charge-off markets?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, good. I was just going to say, whoever wants to jump on that.
Okay. I think for us, it's really we can work accounts at any stage of delinquency, and yes, times have changed, but the one thing that's really stayed consistent is just the listening aspect. If we're listening to our clients and understanding their strategy and what their goals are, I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of tools, it really comes down to that. So knowing if our clients trying to connect and talk with their customer, the consumer, are they trying to send mail? Do they have a legal strategy? Are they trying to prep accounts for a sale? At the end of the day, they all have specific goals that they're trying to meet. And as long as, we're listening to those goals, we can come up with a plan for them. So yes, we have a lot more to work with, and AI is important, technology, but at the end of the day, it's really just listening and knowing where to go, like companies like TU for that support.
Absolutely. Joey, what types of experience and really what I mean when I ask this is, I know from a process service perspective, focusing in on this, highly specialized aspect of the collection space is really what you guys specialize in. What are some of those things that you see that kind of take it to the next level? Whether it's tools that you're utilizing or strategic relationships, what would you say has been that biggest change again over your time in the space? And I know it extends past not just UServe, but you have experience that kind of extends beyond that. Talk to me a little bit about that, Joey.
So, as a process server, the data that we are most interested in is where to find the individual, right? That's really what we're looking for. Is where is that home address, or where can we locate them? And I think that the biggest difference over the years is kind of how we can assist our clients in managing their inventory of pre-legal or pre-served accounts, right? So, where we may be really adding value, or we can continually skip a pool of accounts, or we can maintain them in our database and run them through our skip trace tools to
Right.
give them the best chance at service, to continually go back and check these accounts instead of skipping them once and forgetting about them until a client recalls them and they're looking at them one last time before they're out the door. But we can really add value as a continual partner and continually skipping these accounts to help them kind of stay on top of their inventory management.
Fantastic. And Stephanie, from a challenge perspective, and I realize, from a top level view, this is really about relationships and how skip tracing data has changed and some tools. And I kind of want to lay that foundation to demonstrate the best way to show that, which is, again, what are some challenges you've been faced with, Stephanie, especially in the last 5 years as a business owner, as somebody that is providing services across the financial services space? What are some things that have impacted you? And I'm going to follow that up with kind of a secondary question, which is, how important are these strategic relationships in ensuring that you can kind of weather that storm?
I think the biggest challenges that we've seen in the last 5 years are definitely changes with the economy. A lot's different after COVID. Consumer behavior has changed. A lot of our, trending and predictive models are different. We didn't expect some of this. Like for example, we're also having difficulty with hiring. That it's been hard to hire and maintain employees, more difficult than we thought it would be after COVID. We're also seeing more work from home. So when you look at the looking where, to find a consumer, they're probably, or it's likely they're not living and working in the same state.
Right.
So, people are on the move. We saw a lot of people maybe try their hand at being self-employed during COVID and right after COVID. And maybe it wasn't so great. And now they're back, working for the man in the workforce. But people are on the move. They're changing their jobs frequently. They are transient. They are moving. So it's changed the game when it comes to location services or the verification of employment.
Right.
I know, like when Joe was talking about not letting accounts sit, like that really does tie back into that. You can't just look for someone and let them sit. They're going to turn up. So you've got to use data like TransUnion helps us with that. Putting triggers on accounts, watching for activity, and people are resurfacing more quickly, and we're noticing those changes much more often. So I think just really staying on top of our game even, you know, when it comes to hiring, when it comes to locating people, and using that data, and watching for those changes more frequently.
Absolutely. Joey, same type of question there. From a challenge perspective, you know, what was it that challenged you most in the last 5 years? And again, same kind of follow-up question to that. How important are those strategic relationships in making sure that you can continue to grow and develop as opposed to staying complacent? I know we had talked about that on kind of our initial calls.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple challenges we're facing. I mean, technology is really working for us and kind of holding us accountable. Like the Ring doorbells. I mean, every process server, when you go up and knock on a door, you have to assume that you're being videotaped. I mean, so
Right.
as far as the technology challenge, that's something that we have to deal with. But um, skip tracing, I think it's, you know, kind of how we take the data that we're getting from our vendors and then providing that back to our clients. I think that that is a real big change in what we're doing. That a lot of clients have really appreciated and are using it as a, you know, as a tool that they're building into their work processes. So when we give skip data back, we're not just saying, hey, here's a bunch of new addresses on stuff that we've tried. We're saying, hey, these addresses are all out of county. You may want to get your change of venue done before it goes out for service, or these are all out of state now. You need to, you know, close these and move them back to your client, or we may want to try a sheriff service on this because there was somebody might have threatened some physical, you know, altercation or whatever the case may be. But
Right.
we try to take that data and slice it and dice it and give it back to our clients in a way where it's useful and it's beneficial to them to fold into their processes.
Compartmentalization, customization, two key components of a lot of what we had discussed on the call prior to this webinar. In the case of customization, is it a customization internally for your own process, or is it a client by client customization? I'm starting with you, Joey.
I'd say kind of both. So we have a lot of integration with state court systems where we have the ability to, you know, retrieve data or scrape data from these sites and give it back to our clients, um, as opposed to them having to spend man hours physically doing that stuff. We also have some really cool interfaces with filing systems where maybe we can help and take all your lawsuits and file them in bulk in certain states as opposed to you having to go back and do them one at a time. I mean, I think as far as technology goes, those are really kind of the main tools that we've used that have been a big benefit to our clients.
And that is a fairly unique thing, that batch filing process, right, Joey? That's not something that everyone does. That's something that was kind of created out of the need for customization.
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
absolutely correct. So there was a need there. We picked up the ball and ran with it in the states that we operate and kind of worked with the filing systems in those states and really kind of pushed to make it happen. And we're successful in doing so. But that is not something that is just available out there. That's something
Right.
that we had time and effort in developing and deploying.
Stephanie, talk to me about your customization, not just internally, but customization, as we spoke about, from a partnership perspective, an outside partner. I think a good analogy for trying to get information a lot of times from data vendors or from the internet in general is it's kind of like trying to take a sip of water off of a fire hydrant. There's just so much there. And so talk to me about how important is it to have these kind of strategic partnerships from your perspective, as not just a business owner, but as somebody that's kind of seen the entire growth of this space over 15, 20 years.
That was a kind number.
I,
Just kidding. Um, Gosh, I mean, it really, I mean, to put it simply, it's great to, I mean, we all know there's so much change and it happens so
Yeah.
fast. And there, it's not little changes, it's changes that they affect our business, like the way we operate on a daily basis. So to be able to pick up the phone and just say, here's my issue. I need this data. Here's why I need it. Do you have it? How can I get it? And also, what am I missing? Like to talk to partners as peers and to support each other. What have you heard? How can this best help this client? Maybe bring clients into that conversation to say, here's what we're all facing. You know, let's call TransUnion. Let's set up a call and let's see if we can figure this out. So even when you're looking at maybe some new like state restrictions regarding income thresholds, I think Joe was saying too, we need to not just find data or find people or find a location, but help to say, this is our recommended next step for you. Based off of our experience, here's the strategy that you could implement with this data. And I'm going to make it even more meaty and give you some feedback from TransUnion. Here's what they have. Here's some, trending models. Here's whatever. So I think really knowing that we do have each other to lean on and partner with helps us not look at those challenges like obstacles, but more opportunities. And, we've been thrown some loops over the years, but to have that, person on the other end of the phone there to help is just absolutely incredible.
So in your experience working with, be it TransUnion or any other outside vendor that's partnering with you to create these solutions, what recommendations would you have for those that aren't currently doing this today? How would they get involved? How do they get engaged? There are lots of products, right? So how is it that you, and again, I know it's kind of a tough question to answer. It's not like you just throw a dart at the wall. There's a process, there's due diligence. But if you could kind of summate that for us, kind of in your personal experience, how do you know you're making the right decision? And what would you recommend to business owners or those that are listening to the webinar or the recording? How do you start making the right decision, Stephanie?
I think you have to know that it's not always going to be perfect either. It takes some work. You're going to have to massage some data. You're going to have to do some things. But I think knowing you have to just start somewhere. And then a feedback loop from clients is always so important. Getting scorecards, knowing how you're performing. What's your payer rate at 6 months? How are you stacking up against your competitors, and then sharing that data with your partners to say, all right, I've got this client and they need to gain market share, or they're trying to cut costs. What are your ideas for me? Like, where do you think I can get the biggest bang for my buck on the data front? I can apply that manual labor to it and we can solve this problem. So, I mean, it's a competitive space out there. So just knowing your resources and knowing that you may not get it right the first time. And it's okay to keep asking questions and keep getting feedback and keep trying until you can hit those goals and the expectations of your client. I think sometimes even just saying, what does success look like for you?
Absolutely.
What does that look like? Paint me a picture and let's see if we can get there. And then sharing that vision with your data partners or any other type of partner. There's a lot of listening and communicating.
No, that's great. And I think you really hit it on the head when you said you need to have those clear objectives in mind as the business owner. Joey, aside from clear objectives and good communication, what other things would you say are really important in finding those Skiptracing partners or those other data partners outside of those two items?
I think that one of our biggest obligations is to be responsible with how we spend our clients' resources. And I think that a lot of these tools kind of go to that. So, we make recommendations to our clients as to, should you go back out and attempt a same address that you just non-server that was attempted 2 months ago? If you do, why do you think that? Like, being able to justify why are we making a recommendation to them based on the available tools that we have, and not just trying to get as many extra service fees that we can. So it really is a partnership and providing them with the information that we're getting from the tools that we have available to make the best decision for our clients and for our clients' clients. Because we really, I feel like we also have to be a steward of those resources and a partner, and not just a vendor that's trying to maximize, the bill at the end of the month. We want to be a partner and really help them achieve their goals.
It's critical. It's not about this deal. It's about that long-standing relationship. Exactly right. And, that really was the moral of what we're trying to drill a little deeper down into here. As we talk about these relationships with vendors, when you maintain these relationships, how easy is it to maintain the relationship with the vendor versus the person? I'm sure you deal with a lot of customization, as we've stated in the past. And I think along with that customization comes that comfort of knowing that you have a third-party partner as opposed to a third-party vendor. Mm-hmm. How do you best kind of encapsulate that using potentially, and again, if you're comfortable using names, please do so. If not, no need. But how important is that in defining those relationships, and what types of things do you guys do to make sure that you're constantly growing? We talked earlier, complacency is what gets you killed. What are those relationships? Is it new products? Is it new services? Is it new tools, new customizations? And how often are you checking in with your partners in regards to those things? We're going back to Steffi on this one.
I think I like being able to get together face to face. I like to use industry events or conferences or whatever to be able to sit down. And I think there is something to, breaking bread and having dinner together or something, and not having a 30-minute meeting, fly by, but to really sit down and understand each other. Even on a personal level, what is that person trying to accomplish? How can we make each other look good? You know what I mean? We need to do a good job for our clients, for theirs. I think for me, it's really just slowing down and getting that FaceTime in. I think that's important for me. And then attending events, attending webinars, keeping like a pulse on what's going on. And just maybe having those like sit downs and a touch base, maybe once a quarter even, and just to share, these are my obstacles. What are you facing? Can we help each other? I don't know. I think it's, for me, I like a lot of that face-to-face connection.
Joey, you the same?
Yeah, I think that what I would add to that is that, we have to make sure that our clients' needs are number one, depending on what their objective is and how they want to accomplish their goals. Then we have to kind of formulate a plan that serves that need, right? So we have to be flexible in that every client's going to have different objectives. And we also, in turn, have to have a partner who is like to you, who can be flexible with us when we're coming at them and saying, hey, we've got a different objective with this one. We got to figure out a way to make it work. This is what we're going for. Can we do it? And they've always been great about working with us and trying to figure out how to solve our clients' needs. I mean, it could vary from, we may need data back daily, or they need data back on a monthly basis that meets, this list of criteria. I mean, it could run the gamut as to what purpose we're trying to accomplish, but just being receptive and available and flexible enough to accomplish those goals.
Absolutely. I think we can agree that all default products have been on the rise. It's one of the things we kind of all nodded and agreed on as we started to prepare for this. With that in mind, I know that we had talked about one of the most critical components here, and forgive me, as those on the call know, I tend to go super deep nerd, and I started asking about large language models, and so we had to pull that back a little bit. But I do want to talk about something that you had mentioned earlier, briefly. And I know it's something that small business owners may feel like the process itself is very daunting to get engaged. Like I said before, it's a lot of information. But how important and how easy is it, especially from a cross-platform compatibility, right? Oftentimes, business owners aren't just using one system. Some may be, but oftentimes you're using a system that has plugins, APIs, or some other type of data that's flowing into it. Talk to me about the cross-platform compatibility and the ease or not so ease of that type of integration process. Steph, start with you.
Okay. This is a little bit more out of my wheelhouse, talking about things like this, but from my perspective, we have so much data at our fingertips. We have 30 years of data. How do we use it to work smarter? So how do we get all of our systems to talk to each other in a way that it's useful for us? So if we know we're trying to maybe verify employment with a company, well, I've been probably trying to verify that verify employment with that company for 30 years. So how do I do that? You know what I mean? Who works there that I want to talk to? How do they prefer to communicate with me? If I can gather all of that information and know how to make, how responsive is this company? I can use that data to work smarter. So how do I pull in 30 years of data that we've built into creating a plan where I can keep that labor cost down and I can work smart. So I don't know how all the magic happens, but I know that it happens and I want it to happen. And we need to be able to leverage the combination of data and technology, because we all are doing more with less. We all are. And we're sitting on so much information and knowing how to use it in the best way. And we need to make it bite-sized so that we can digest and use it.
That's a great comment. Joey, same thoughts, same process. And again, I'm not looking for the magic secret sauce behind the scenes, but if you look at it like a Lego, you're building a Lego, right? There's kind of that baseline, and then you kind of plug things in on the top, and different sets are compatible. A lot of people don't realize how simple it may be.
Yeah, and so our system of record is a proprietary system that we built and developed, and with that comes a lot of flexibility, right? So we can do all our programming in house, and we have the ability to work with pretty much any system out there. So, whether it is, sending out an Excel spreadsheet or an API or web services or however we need to get the data back from the particular vendor and slice and dice it and get it out to our clients, we have the flexibility to do it in the way that makes the most sense for them and for our, vendors or TransUnion or whoever it may be. So really, kind of flexible there. We can really do it any way under the sun, depending on what the need is.
Absolutely. So to that point, and you guys both deal with personal data. I'm going to ask a question here that may seem a little broad, but how do you verify the quality of your data? Like, how do you know your data's good? Back when it was you had LexisNexis and TLO, and that was it. You had two sources, and then somebody got the Pizza Hut database, and it was like everyone lost their mind. You could suddenly, it was like great income, RPCs went through the roof. But now today, with the rise of social media, how do you quantify the quality of your data? Steph?
For us, it's easy because we do the manual piece. So we're known for, so we verify all that data. So, we're always tracking internally anything that we can onboard that's compliant for us, we'll bring in-house and test. So I want to get my hands on pretty much everything. And then we just track the verification rates and response rate of that data. And so we have a team of over 100 people that verify data all day.
Right.
So for us, it's pretty black and white. Do we have the right person paired with the right social at the right place of employment? Are they full-time? Are they, what is their income? So everything is very solid for us. So we're kind of more on that back end piece where we're looking for people that you probably can't find through a traditional source, and we need a person to sit and look for that consumer.
Has it gotten easier or more difficult with the amount of information? And I'm really asking from more of a social media perspective. And I realize most employers will have some online presence, not all of them. Like I understand that's probably most have something or some listing somewhere. Are there any tools, or is there any way to kind of delineate good from bad, or is it just right back to the secret sauce of the manual process, having to go through there and having the intelligence to differentiate between good data and bad?
I think it's like it is overwhelming, but a lot of it's based on experience. And I think what we've found training people to do this, I mean, I look at it as a trade, this type of location service is knowing you have this much labor time to expend. How are you going to spend it? Where do you want to go? And how do you know when to stop? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's the problem. I think that's the more difficult piece is it's kind of fun looking for people, you know what I mean? And verifying information. It is. And how do you stop and know that you've used up your, labor allotment, you've used your data cost, and you have to stop. So, and I think to add to that a little bit is knowing where those breaking points are and then relaying those to your client to say, I could have found this person if I had this much more, you know what I mean? Do you want me to do it? Do you want to spend more? Do you want to spend less? What are you trying to do? So, but I think the challenge is it's overwhelming, and some of it just truly boils down to experience. Once
That's
you've
great.
done
Yeah.
a trade like this for so long, you know in your gut whether you're going to find this person or not, probably within a few seconds.
Yeah, fair statement.
Yeah.
Joe, same kind of question. And again, I understand how the process is different. And in some ways, from my perspective, what you guys do kind of has almost an infinite realm of results codes. And I realize you probably use something, a different demographic, but it's Stephanie kind of deals with the absolute. You're employed, you're not employed, or you're employed here. You've got neighbor's dog tried to attack the process server, or physically threatening individuals. So I mean, to me, it's like you can't put things kind of in a box that easily.
No, and I think that we kind of judge the value of the data based on, I guess, the proofs in the pudding kind of model. So we have, we can look at the service results based on this new batch of data that we've gotten back, and we can map that over time and see who are the vendors that are giving us the reliable data, who are the vendors that we want to put at the top of our waterfall that consistently give better data than the
Right.
others. And we get certain metrics that come with that, like how long has a person resided at an address. We will bake that into the priority of the address attempted. Um, like you said, some of the service result information. I mean, could it be that this person did live at this address, but they moved 2 months ago and they don't have a forwarding address? Well, then
Right.
we know that that address was good, and there's a high likelihood that that person is going to be in the system somewhere again in a month or two if they're relocating. So we know that in 90 days we will probably be able to find a good address for this one, as opposed to went to the house and never heard of the person. I've been here for 30 years. I don't know who they are. So we know that that person is probably going to be a little harder to track down, because the databases are not providing accurate information for them. So it's really just kind of, you have to take the data from all the multiple sources where it's available and kind of bake it into what works best for us and what is ultimately getting the best service results for our clients.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Joey. Let's talk about the most exciting new technology. And it doesn't have to be something that you guys are currently using, but something that definitely has kind of sparked your attention. And whether that's newer data sources or potentially newer ways to aggregate that data in your system. What types of things do you guys see on the horizon, especially in the receivables management space, that are really going to have an impact? We've talked about going from CDs to basically having the entirety of everything at the access of your fingers on, through cloud, through portals, through one machine. What do you see as the future? You think artificial chatbots are gonna take over the jobs of the people? That I'm being glib, of course, but
Yeah.
Maybe a little. Maybe a little. And
Joey?
oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. I thought you were that was
Oh,
it.
sorry. No, I think I think we need to focus on yes, it's looking at AI and new technology, but I think the reason behind we need some of what we need, why we need to do those things is looking at communication methods. So I think we need to think about how does the consumer want to communicate, and we need to use technology and new things on the horizon to follow their wishes throughout the life cycle of an account. So does someone want to talk to you, a human being? Great, we can do that. Does someone want email? Does someone want to chat? Does someone want to go to my website and communicate? I think that we just need to really open our minds to put ourselves in the consumer's shoes and be able to offer all of those options. And I don't think, I know as the company right now, we're kind of just dabbling in some of those new things. But I think maybe regulations are getting closer to catching up with us, so we all feel more comfortable ultimately doing what a consumer prefers. So it's going to be doing that, it's going to be good for all of us.
Joey, let me flip this around a little bit, because again, I already realized that unlike a lot of what Stephanie does, the communication processes that you guys are held to are mandated by the state or
Mhm.
the federal government in some, you're right. So I think there's a tighter box that you guys have to operate in, but where are you seeing some technological change there? Is it, again, I know you guys do the batch filing. That's clearly a technological advantage. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm interested, again, as a thought leader in the space, as somebody that's uniquely thinking about this, what things could you say keep an eye on for the future?
I think the biggest need that we can help our clients with is getting information from the court systems. So, you know, we are primarily concerned with delivering a document to the consumer and
Mhm.
then helping our clients file those documents and getting information back from the court dockets related to those documents. So, having the ability to, like in South Florida, there was a big issue with motion and orders down in Miami. So, have the ability to build out a system that will work with each individual judge and will send them what they need and to automate that process and to get your motion orders back faster. That is a real advantage for our clients, to be able to get their stuff done in a more timely manner where, if you don't jump through the hoops and do it the way that the courts want it, then you're going to be at the bottom of the stack. um, Getting information from electronic dockets, being able to, you know, kind of scrape those websites or have interfaces with those websites or services, and being able to aggregate that data and provide it back to our clients as opposed to them having to spend man hours with a clerk, physically looking up file by file. So I think just those advances in kind of aggregating court data through various means,
Sure.
for our clients and being able to deliver that to them in a way that's easily importable and readily usable in their systems.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. So kind of leading into the later parts of our session here, and again, speaking specifically to TransUnion, one of the things that you both had mentioned in advance of this call when we were kind of going over some talking points is the TransUnion difference. That's a real thing. And Stephanie, starting with you, what does that mean to you? What's the core behind that?
I think it's a comfortable relationship and they're very responsive. But we have TransUnion data integrated into every aspect of our business. So from hiring, we're using them for background checks, client onboarding, and then on the location services side, really in so many different aspects. We talked a lot about quality, so we need to make sure we have the right consumer paired with the right social. We're using them for that verification, employment leads, residential phone numbers, relatives. Is someone self-employed? It truly helps us, create a real like consumer profile. So it's valuable to us in so many ways. And just continuing to learn from each other, we can continue to say, what am I missing? What more can you do for me? If you were sitting in my shoes, what would you do? And we have that type of a relationship that's, can grow for a long time.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Joey, thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, kind of throwing back to what we talked about a minute ago, we have to kind of take all of the available information and kind of rank our vendors to see the order of priority
Yeah.
and how they're going to stack up and what information they're providing. And, TransUnion has consistently been at the top of that list. I mean, the data they provide, the volume of data, but I guess the hit rate has always been substantially higher than the other vendors we're using. The quality of the data has been better. So, we personally put them at the top of our waterfall, and they're the first vendor that we're going to, and really rely on them to provide the best data out there. And consistently, that's what we've seen in the results. So we're very happy with them, and they've always been over backwards to accommodate us and whatever we need, which is
Back to the relationship.
yeah, it's you can't beat it. I mean, it's a necessary thing that you have to have a partner that you can trust and that will work with you, and they've time and time again proven to be that.
Fantastic. From a risk perspective, and I realize, from a collections perspective, more often than not, law firms, collection agencies, debt buyers are burdening a particular risk since they own the consumers, they own the accounts of the consumers, and so they're put in a more risky situation. Is there any advice you could give? Because again, you're providing this information, but are there any risk factors that you see coming to light with any of the political machinations, be it through credit, medical credit bureau reporting, whether it's, change of statute to particular states? Is there anything that you guys, as the leaders in your business space, could give to the audience? What are those things to look out for from a risk mitigation standpoint?
I mean, so the biggest risk for us is obviously going out and serving somebody who's not the right party, or making contact with that junior senior situation that Stephanie kind of spoke to. I mean, making sure that you have the right party. Um, and there again, it just goes back to having a vendor that you can rely on to make sure that you're getting good information. So the biggest risk to us is wrong party contacts. And I think that is something that this skip tracing and data provider really helps us with.
That's great. And again, Stephanie, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I knew that there's a bit of a difference. Joey has people in the field. There's physical consumer employee contact. Yours is mostly virtual. Does VeriFacts do any knock and talks these days?
No.
I,
But
it's
my
You're
but my
laughing, but I
answer
mean
is
that's
the same.
Joey's entire model is
Yes.
the knock and talk. And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting to kind of balance that and see the difference in data risk versus physical human risk. I mean, there's definitely a much different approach here.
Yeah, I think my answer is the same though. We have to make sure that we are accurate. We can't cut corners like that. So we need to make sure we have the right individual at the right location. So we have to take those extra steps to make sure that we are, have that quality piece of information.
Absolutely. We've talked about a lot on this one. We've talked about the importance of relationship. We've talked about the dynamic, ever-changing, not just communication preferences, but having and defining those clear objectives, those clear goals with your vendors. With that being said, as your kind of current role has you, where do you see the vast number of improvements that especially are impacting the ability to contact a consumer prior to charge off? I know that again, Joey, this is more of a Stephanie question.
Mhm.
You're dealing with this default point, and then it kind of goes from there. But for you, Stephanie, oftentimes in the past, at least in my experience, the skip tracing kind of started at default. I know that that's changed dramatically, especially as Corona had, hundreds of thousands of accounts that were kind of put into delayed payment plans. But all of a sudden, you're in a different environment in the sense that you now have the ability to skip before you really have to skip.
Mhm.
How does VeriFacts kind of help with that process? Is that something you guys are working on developing as far as a scoring or pre-development, or kind of pushing something, new products, new services out to your customers?
Mhm. I think the earlier we can help and service an account, the better, obviously. I would say our bread and butter is still on that, post-legal side or
Sure.
supporting legal strategy. But being able to connect with that consumer earlier is good for everyone. So it's making that connection. So listening again to the clients, are you trying to dial? Well, we don't want to just find you the best phone number. We want to make sure that person can communicate with you through that phone number. So it's really understanding the client's strategy. Are you trying to call? Are you trying to send a piece of mail? Why are you trying to do these things? So that we can really dig down and get that exact piece of information that's going to get you to that, to your ultimate goal. But I think in today's world, we're seeing accounts, I mean, even at 30 or 60 days, where maybe that our client's just missing a piece of information that they know they're going to need down the road. So before it becomes difficult to find, let's
Right.
make sure all profiles are complete. Do we have a residential phone? Do we have a cell phone, email? and to gather that communication preference early is going to be great and definitely helpful, throughout the life cycle of the account.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Final question before we wrap this up. One piece of business owner advice that you would give to those on the webinar, those listening at a later time, regarding how to best engage, how to best leverage these beneficial relationships from a skip tracing perspective. From a VeriFacts, I'm asking you as CEO of VeriFacts, and Joey, you as the general counsel of UServe, where do you guys specialize, and where is it that you really do something much different? This is if there was one piece that you wanted everyone on this to hear, this is it.
Oh gosh. I think the quality piece for me, and as much as it's hard to maintain that sometimes when we all say we have to do more with less, we have to do more with less, but to never cut a corner, to never, like, there's just certain things that have to be standard. I always tell everyone here, like everyone that works here or people that I work with, is that if you think you're going to make a decision that might keep you up at night, that's not right. So everything that we do as business owners and working with partners or whatever the case may be, you better be making decisions that you know you can sleep sound.
I love
So
that.
you want to sleep sound, and I know Joe said this earlier, or kind of led to this too, but none of us are wanting, one batch of accounts from a client. We're really looking, do I want to be with this person for 10 years, 20 years? Absolutely. So I think trust is a huge factor. So I know this is like a long-winded response, but I think it comes down to keeping quality at the forefront of what we do, making sure we're proud of the results that we're giving clients, work with a peace of mind, and think long-term.
My summation of that is quality balanced with optimization for being proud of maintaining quality long-term relationships. That's a tough one to follow, Joey.
That's very good, Stephanie.
But I know you can do it because, again, the process, I think, is different.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the most important thing that we can do is serve papers, right? Our clients want to get papers served. That's why they hire us. But outside of that, I think where we kind of differentiate ourselves or what we do better than our competitors, I think, is the communication aspect. If you reach out to us, you will get an answer back within an hour or two, and it will usually be from one of the owners.
So important.
If you need a technology or programming change, it doesn't go into a queue and you have to wait 3 months to get your IT issue resolved. Like, we will turn programming request around in a day or two. I mean, we really try to be there for our clients, be super receptive and responsive, and make sure that they know that whatever they need, if it's in our ability to provide it, we're going to. We obviously want to serve as many papers as we can, but we also want to be the best steward that we can for our clients and how they spend their resources. We just want to be a partner, just want to do the best job we can for them, want them to be successful. We want to be receptive, and we want to be successful. So
there were two things you mentioned there that we talked a lot about that I admittedly didn't bring up earlier on the call, which is making someone feel like they're not a little fish in a big pond. They're not a number. And
That's right.
I know we talked about this a lot in advance. And I mean, you just really hammered that home there in the sense that if somebody calls you, you're on the phone with them in an hour. And I don't think that's the status quo. And again, it may be a curse of the larger you get. If you have 10,000 employees and you're kind of spread out, look, TransUnion's a huge company, but they still maintain that level of customer relationship. And I think that it's important because this is it on a microcosm, in the sense that you have that relationship with each of your clients. And I think it's an absolutely critical component of success.
Absolutely.
With that being said, I do not see any questions within the chat. So if anybody has questions in the next 30 seconds, we would be happy, our panelists would be happy to answer that. Not seeing any questions, I would like to, first of all, thank our sponsor, TransUnion. Second of all, I would like to thank our esteemed panelists here, Ms. Stephanie Clark, Mr. Joe Wilkins, and I am your host, Mark Naiman, signing off for this particular webinar of Skiptracing 2024, Relationships, but backed by data. So again, thank you guys both for joining us today, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.